Now my Cowboy Burger is stacked high with pickled jalapenos, cheddar, bacon, thick cut burger, barbecue sauce, tobacco onions on a homemade bun for seriously one of the most insanely delicious burgers out there. And I was this close to getting it on a local burger chain's menu, but more about that later. What I want to do is try and make it again, but with better ingredients and more flavor. Time to prep. Sound good? Let's cook. I've got 8 to 10 medium to large size fresh jalapenos that I want to thinly slice. Now, back in my restaurant days, if I wanted to do this quickly and wanted uniform slices, I always went to my mandolin. It's a game changer, so I'm going to do that here. I want these to be in between a 1/16 and an 1/8 inch thick. Now, why so thin? Because jalapenos are spicy. I don't want a big chunk of jalapeno when I take a bite of something. If they're thinly sliced, I get a little bit of heat, but still get the flavor. Now, in the original one that I was gonna serve up, we just sliced jalapenos really thick and put them on there raw. Now, if you know anything about jalapenos, some are totally fine and some are crazy spicy. So what I'm thinking to eliminate that, but still have a little bit of bite and a lot more flavor, I think I'm gonna pickle these. I've got a medium-sized pot, and for a basic pickling liquid, I'm going to add in 1.5 cups of water, 1.5 cups of white distilled vinegar, 1.5 tablespoons of coarse salt. Then I'm going to need a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar. This is going to help reduce a lot of that spice. And I have 6 to 8 garlic cloves, just slicing off the end and smashing it, adding it to the pot. Now, if you want to do this at home and you love garlic, add a little bit more. Heading over to a cooktop, want to bring it to a boil. Now that it's rapidly boiling, my biggest thing here is I want to ensure that the salt and the sugar are completely dissolved into that liquid. Everything looks good. I also like to give it a little try. I might need a little more salt or sugar. Remember, it should be very flavorful. Now at this stage, I'm going to add in my jalapenos. And just using the backside of the spoon, I'm just going to take care that all the jalapenos are submerged completely in that liquid. Then I'm going to set it to the side. It's probably going to take about 2 hours for these to cool down to room temperature, but I've got a lot of other things to do, like cooking some bacon. Now, I picked up about 1 pound from my local butcher shop that's smoked, not cured. I just like to spread it on a sheet tray lined with parchment paper. You've seen me do this a million times in a few other videos. Now, for those folks who just love pepper, I'm just going to do it on 2 slices here. Add some coarse ground black pepper to it. We'll definitely spice it up a little bit. Putting in the oven at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for 22 to 25 minutes. To me, I get that nice, perfect golden brown and crisp texture. Then I like to drain it off on some paper towels. Also add that bacon on there that's peppered. Then, of course, don't forget about that rendered bacon fat. Scrape as much of that goodness off into a bowl as possible. Now, at this stage, I just strain it through a chinois and store it for pie crust or cooking. It's gold, my friends. And now for one of the heroes of this Cowboy Burger, something known as tobacco onions. Now, these are just thinly sliced onions that are coated in a zesty breading and then fried until golden brown until they really resemble tobacco leaves. It's actually very similar to my fried onions that I use on my green bean casserole. I'm only going to need 1 large yellow onion here. I suppose you could use a red, white, or sweet as well. Just remove that outside peel. And then just like the jalapenos, I want perfect uniform slices. So I'm running it down on a mandolin, about an 1/8 inch thick. Then I'm just going to quickly store them to the side. Now for the batter. I always bread everything up in these little 9-inch deep cake pans. Any shallow, wide bowl will work. I'm going to add in 1 large egg, 1.5 cups of buttermilk. Whole milk would work fine as well. Then I'm going to generously season it up with a little coarse salt and fresh cracked black pepper. Just going to use a fork really quick here and mix everything until it's combined. Then I'm going to set it to the side. Now for the flour portion, I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour here. To me, the best seasoning, I'm going to use 3 tablespoons of my Southwest seasoning rub. It is amazing, and it's going to perfectly complement these to make tasty tobacco onions. I think Old Bay would probably work well. I also always taste it just to make sure it's tasty. All right. Now let's take a look at our jalapenos. We're chilled to room temperature. Just going to transfer everything over to a wide mouth jar. Now what's awesome about these, they're fantastic on nachos, chicken sandwiches, a regular ham sandwich, you name it. Screw it on the top, go in the refrigerator. They'll be good for 4 to 6 weeks. Fantastic. And for the sauce for this burger, I'm going to use my jazzed up barbecue sauce. I have 2 cups of my homemade barbecue sauce. If you're making this, any of your favorite barbecue sauce will do. Then a 1/2 cup each of water, apple juice, apple cider vinegar, then 1 stick of unsalted butter, going over medium heat and just cooking it until the butter is completely melted in there. We're good to go. Alrighty, the toppings are completely prepped up. They are ready to roll. But before we get into the beef and bun portion of this, you have to go back to 2016 to even understand where my take on this Cowboy Burger began. I partnered with a local burger chain in Chicago, Northwest Indiana called Meatheads. They asked if I could shake some things up, redo the menu, add on a bunch of specials, and after we rolled everything out, it started to make some great headway. Then I came up with my Cowboy Burger. We tested it, we tasted it, we loved it. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the partnership stopped. Come to find out a few months later, the owner was looking to sell Meatheads the entire time. And right when we agreed to put the Cowboy Burger on the menu, he struck a deal and sold it. So I've never had the opportunity to unleash this to the world until now. And that's why I'm so excited about it. Now, let's get into the beef. I've got 5 pounds of different cuts of beef here, and I always do a little extra whenever I'm grinding homemade ground beef so that I can have some and put it in the freezer for another recipe. And when wanting a very beefy flavored hamburger, you want to use cuts of beef that are very heavily worked by the cow, but those also tend to be a little tough. Like first, this 2 pounds of chuck, loaded with fat, loaded with beefy flavor, but a little tough. Next, got 2 pounds of brisket, very lean, but very beefy in flavor. And last but not least, I have 1 pound of boneless short rib, jam-packed with flavor, fat, and a nice amount of leanness. Now what I'm going to do to prepare each of these cuts of beef is slicing them into 1-inch cubes. Then I'm transferring them right over to a platter where I'm going to give it a quick mix to evenly distribute the different cuts. Now I'm placing them in the freezer for about 20 to 25 minutes. You want to make sure the beef is nice and cold. If that fat heats up when you grind it, your grinder is going to be a mess. And now that everything is ice cold, including several parts of this grinder, I'm going to run several handfuls through using a medium coarse die. Everything's coming along really nicely. I think I'm going to run it through one more time just to make sure that fat is really small so that it completely melts when I grill it, giving it way more flavor and just saturating that burger entirely. Once everything is run through, I'm going back to the freezer for another 20 to 25 minutes. Then, round 2. Continuing that same process, and the first thing you'll notice is how creamy the ground beef will look. That fat is very distributed with the lean parts of the beef so that it will be that much more delicious in dispersing the flavor and the fat throughout the hamburger as it cooks. Then I'm taking a nice big handful, about 8 ounces, rolling it into a little ball, and I'm going to press these through my burger press. You definitely don't have to do this at home if you're trying to make these. I like this because it gives nice uniform size to the burgers, plus it packs and presses all that fat in there so that the burgers don't puff up when I grill them. I'm going to make 6 of these for now. I've got some buddies coming over. For the remaining, I'm just going to freeze it. I actually do have a vacuum sealer. This thing is awesome, by the way. There's no endorsement here or anything like this, but I'm telling you what, this is a game changer, and I can't stop using it. Absolutely obsessed. And maybe a couple of you are thinking, I'm making this, but I'm not grounding my own beef. Well, if you're looking for a good recommendation, 80% lean to 20% fat, chuck ground beef is what you should use for this. Now, before we start the cooking process, I want to talk about one of the most important components to any burger, and that's the bun. Now, back in 2016, when I made this Cowboy Burger, the entire world, including myself, used either a brioche bun or a pretzel bun. But what I want to do is use a bun that perfectly complements it, doesn't overpower any of the other beefy flavors in the burger, and can hold up so that it doesn't get overly soggy. Now, to me, that bun is the potato bun. Now, this is what we all used to use back in the day, and it is awesome. Now, if you want to take a stab at this, I recently made a recipe video. It's a little time intensive, but I promise you the end result is incredible. You won't want to use any other bun for any sandwich, not even just a burger. All right, now it's time to season up the beef, and then I want to make one more tweak to the cooking process. I'm going to be about a foot away when seasoning with coarse salt to make sure all the surface area is seasoned properly so every bite is delicious. Same exact thing with the pepper, but I'm going to go a little bit heavy here. I want a little bit more peppery spice on my cheeseburger. Plus, guess what? Beef loves pepper. Now for my cooking method. I'm thinking, why not smoke it? I'm going to load up my hopper with oak wood, and I'm cranking it to 500 degrees. I want a little bit of char plus a little bit of smoky flavor. I think that's absolutely going to take this cheeseburger over the top. Now that it's heating up, I'm going to add some cooking oil to a medium-sized pot. Want to get it to about 350 degrees. Now, let's take a look and see where we're at.
It's go time.
All the mise en place is completely finished, heading back out to my smoker, placing the burgers right down on the grill. Probably going to take in between 4 to 6 minutes per side or until it reaches 140 degrees Fahrenheit internally. Once I drop the burgers, I'm going back inside. I need to make those tobacco onions quickly, so into my buttermilk batter, then over to my zesty flour, coating it on all sides, then into that hot oil at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to cook these for about 4 to 5 minutes. I know that seems a little long. We want these to be golden brown. The browner they are, the tastier the breading and the more caramelization that will be on the onions, making them that much more delicious. I'm going to drain them off on a rack over a sheet tray. Probably pop them in the oven at 200 degrees Fahrenheit just to keep them warm. All right, now back out to the grill quickly. That perfect 6-minute time is up. Going to give it a really quick flip. You can see I've got those nice grill marks on there. We're starting to cook throughout. A couple more minutes though. So the tobacco onions are done. I just flipped over the burgers. Remember when I said I wasn't going to completely cook the bacon in the oven? Because I'm actually going to heat it up on the smoker. I'm going to get a nice little char on there. And then for the burger, for the cheese, I love cheddar. Now, sharp cheddar is awesome and loaded with flavor. The problem is it doesn't melt that well, but mild cheddar still has great flavor and gives it that nice melty deliciousness. So that's what I'm going to go with. I'm just doing 1 slice each. I suppose I could do 2, but I don't want the cheese to overpower the flavor of the hamburger. So after 4 to 6 more minutes, I'm opening it back up. These look fantastic. They're 140 degrees Fahrenheit internally. The cheese looks perfectly melted. I'm grabbing the bacon. Then at this stage, I'm just going to set it to the side, let the cheeseburger rest for 2 to 3 minutes. Perfect timing. Let's butter up and toast up our buns. I'm just going to quickly brush them with some melted unsalted butter, then onto the griddle, or you could do this in a cast iron pan just for 2 minutes or until golden brown. Perfection. Some really fun flavors in this one. And it's funny, when I think back to 2016, back then I didn't quite know what my culinary point of view was yet, even though I was putting it into practice. And it's just techniques. Just fundamental classic cooking techniques and putting them into practice. And honestly, I did the same thing here. Tried to figure out how I can pull out as much flavor as possible. Well, everything's done, so we're gonna plate up in slow-mo. Char smoked homemade ground beef cheeseburger on the bottom toasted bun, some crisp cooked bacon, next loading it up with those pickled jalapenos, then the tobacco onions. Last but not least, plenty of that barbecue sauce. Let's get the verdict from a few of my friends that just happened to stop by. Parker, the guy who edits all my videos, what do you think? The nod says it all. And then Tony Tone, aka Naf Man, stopped by.
Dude, I'm not gonna say this is my favorite thing that you've made, but it's pretty damn close.
Super happy I got to share this one with you, even though it didn't make it into the restaurant back in the day. And if you decide to give this a shot, I think you and whoever you're gonna serve it to are gonna be blown away by the flavors. And look, the only difference between a restaurant and cooking at home is understanding the techniques you can do this. Now, if you just happen to love burgers, you are gonna totally dig my smash burger. That thing is awesome. I've got a great recipe video. See you on there.